Kristen, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Today, I am speaking with Erica Hernandez. She's a first-generation Mexican-American, and she is also a podcast host, editor, performer, and creativity mindset coach. So she is on a mission to help more first-generation and immigrant descendants to confidently own their creativity, their creative identity, and to monetize those dreams. So I am super excited to talk with you, Erica, today about imposter syndrome, which I know so many of us, probably all of us, have. And I just thought this would be a really great topic. And I know that it's something that you're passionate about and helping anyone out there who's struggling, trying to achieve their dream and struggling with those thoughts of, I'm not good enough or whatever they are. But did I miss anything about your story?
No, that's about it. I mean, if you could add more things to it, I don't know. I also do improv. I think I'm funny. So yeah, I started doing TikToks about reviewing television and film. So I'm a multifaceted human being.
Erica is, and if you follow her on Instagram, she is very entertaining, such a performer. She's doing kind of jazz hands right now. You can't see, but I love like popping on Instagram and just like seeing, okay, what is she going to say now? So I'm thinking this is going to be a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
But let's dive into what is imposter syndrome and what are some of those really common like limiting beliefs that we all have running through our heads.
I have my definition, but I wanted to see what is the actual definition. So what I found online, this was the first thing that came up, was that imposter syndrome is loosely defined as doubting your abilities or feeling like a fraud. It disproportionately affects high achieving people, I can't read my own writing, who find it difficult to accept their accomplishments. So when I read this, I was like, yep, that's me. That's me.
Sounds so familiar.
Sounds so familiar. What? But at the same time, I started thinking about it a little more yes, that is the core of what imposter syndrome is, right? Just feeling like a fraud, feeling like you can't do it. But also on top of that, I think a lot of us have this belief that we have to have all these certifications and accomplishments to be the certain identity that we want to be, right? So if you want to be a life coach or a performer, you have to have all, we feel like we have to have this list of things before we could call ourselves that. And
right.
So I think that's where we get trapped in, instead of looking at what our gifts are. We always have skills that we need to polish, but instead of saying I am this because I have these natural gifts, we don't give enough priority to our gifts, our natural gifts. We give more priority to a certificate or a class we took that told us, that just reaffirmed our gifts. So that was an extra layer I wanted to add to that definition, is the belief we hold is that we need to have accomplished a certain amount of things to really own this identity, or to feel like we're that identity, or feel less of an imposter, but we don't focus on our gifts. So
yeah, I love that distinction of focusing on your gifts. And I think you're right. It's when we look for things outside of ourselves for that validation. And those things, the certificates, the degrees or whatever, I mean, they have their place, but when you're coming back to yourself and what you know is to be true, that's the stronger path, because it's going to hold you whether you have this degree, that validation from something outside of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. That Yeah, that's essentially it. It's like we're seeking outside validation instead of validating ourselves first and knowing who we are, and those identities that we choose to be. Mm-hmm.
What are some of the common limiting beliefs that come from feeling like an imposter?
I think just things we say to ourselves like, we're not good enough, right? But at the end of the day, it's conditioning, right? We're conditioned at a very young age that in order to be successful, we have to graduate high school, go to college, get these degrees to be
Check all the boxes.
checked all the boxes to be successful in life. And it's very much like this to-do list, and it's just like all these beliefs come in. And especially if you're like a person of color, on top of that, we're told things like we have to work harder, we have to do more than our white counterparts because of the color of our skin. We're not as worthy as them, we're not as worthy. So we need to be one step above them in like education degrees to be one level below them in like hierarchy, which is really weird, right? And so I think we go into life, a lot of us go into life thinking that we're, no matter what we do, we'll never be as good as other people because of how they were born. So I think that's like one of the things that we hold subconsciously is like, we're never going to be good enough. We're not worthy enough. And we have been conditioned since we were little to compare ourselves to somebody else.
Right. To this standard that can feel unattainable, and then, you internalize a lot of that and it just becomes part of your belief system. So then it's about like, okay, how do you challenge that?
Yeah, there's this like underlying subconscious belief. And I'm going to say it because I know consciously we don't believe this, right? Our conscious self, but our subconscious culture conditioning does at some point believe it. And we run on our subconscious, like 95% of what we do in a day or more. I can't remember the number, is like out of habit, out of subconscious. But there's at a subconscious level, a lot of us think being white is better than being a person of color. And I hate saying that because I don't, it's not true in my conscious self, but in the subconscious self, I remember being in spaces, in white spaces, and being like, I'm not as smart as them. I don't read as fast as her. And all of that.
I don't speak as
well as her.
Right.
Yeah. I don't use that big terminology. What is that? I don't know that word, And all of that piles up, and we're also taught not to speak up when we don't know something, or we feel like we're stupid if we ask these questions. And so we limit ourselves even more. And we beat ourselves up when we're in situations where we're not understanding what's going on, when really it's just about asking questions and like being engaged. But we make ourselves wrong. And then that's where like more like we just pile up on that imposter syndrome, more reasons why we're a fake,
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that feeling. And there's also like this kind of, the making yourself in the wrong, right? First of all, and then there's shame that comes with that. And then there's another layer of, that just not being up to par, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. All the time is happening, all the time. But I think the first step to like getting over it, overcoming it, is really understanding that we have this. I think that's like really like the biggest
the
step,
acknowledgement.
like, the acknowledgement, and knowing that we have been conditioned. We can rewire ourselves to condition ourselves to believe other things, and have our subconscious work for us and not against us, and eliminate imposter syndrome to some extent. I think all of us will always feel like we're never good enough. But I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was like, I'm preparing a course, and it's taking me through like the emotional ringer. Like I'm like, I
can relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. And like I have this like thing, like, how can I be spiritual when I'm just like this funny person that makes fun of things, and I make fun of myself. So at the same time, I'm making fun of like the spiritual community, but I make fun of myself no matter what, And I was like, are people going to take me serious? Because I crack jokes left and right. That's what like feeds my soul. And I just was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I talked to a friend and she's like, none of us know what we're doing, Erica. We're just making it up as we go. And I was like, thank you for telling me that. I needed to hear that, because then knowing that I could just play with it and have fun and not care what people think about me or getting it wrong.
Yeah. And I think there's so much pressure we put on ourselves to not get it wrong, quote unquote wrong. And it is so much about kind of letting go a little bit and having fun. But I'm glad you brought up that example of starting a course, because I know a lot of our listeners are online entrepreneurs and, doing the course thing. I have a course and I totally know what you mean by, yeah, it brings up a lot of feelings around like, well, who am I to put this out here to teach this? And am I doing it, the right way? Are people going to, it brings up a lot of things. So I love that one of your strategies sounds like to reach out to someone, who can tell you, who you could, share those feelings with, and then they can be like, yeah, no one cares. Or no one's really like knows what they're doing. Yeah. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And then you mentioned like being aware of, conditioning and beliefs that are just, we've internalized. And are there other tips you have for overcoming the imposter syndrome?
First, knowing that your desires or that dream that you want is for you, like really, really for you. If you have a dream that's off the like path that's commonly taken, we're oftentimes told no.
Like, that's not for you.
That's not for you, or that's too hard, or why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. Whatever it is, whether it's life coaching, podcasting, being in Hollywood, whatever it is, we're told like no, and we're made to believe that's not really for us, and that we need to take this course over here, this road, because that's the easy way and that's mapped out for us. So we kind of we're conditioned to believe that our dreams are silly, our desires are silly. We need to get out of cloud nine. Like I've been told many times, like, you need to get out of cloud nine. This is real life. You have a good job. You should be grateful for that. There's so many times that I was told that, but I wasn't happy, And the first time I remember in a long time, I was like, it was just a few years ago, literally like 3-4 years ago, I met a coach and then I voice memoed her and I was like, I'm going to tell you something that I won't really tell anyone. I was like nervous, like literally nervous. And I was like, so I thought this dream would go away, but it hasn't. And every night I like obsess over this. And I was like, I desired to be in film and television to entertain people. And I know now with social media and podcasts and YouTube, there's a way to do it where I don't have to be in LA and I could start doing it now. And she voice memoed back, and I remember being like scared that she was going to tell me like, you're old, you need to get your head out of the clouds, like all the stuff everyone told me growing up and as an adult as well. And she's like, Erica, if you have such a pull in your heart, that is meant for you. That is like your soul aligned contract here on earth with the universe, God, whatever you believe in, your source. And I remember just crying out of like,
I want to cry right now hearing that. It's so.
I was like crying. I was like, someone finally gets me. Like, like this is why, like, I'm not crazy. I'm supposed to be doing this. This is why, like, I feel it so strongly. Like I feel this pull. So, and I wanted to share that story because I believe in the power of storytelling. But if someone told you no, I want you guys to know that you're meant to do this. You're meant to do this. Like I don't dream of being a brain surgeon or a teacher, but someone else has that dream, and that's fine. But I don't. I have different dreams, and my dreams are for me. So that was like the number one like tip I want to like lay out there, because I think it's so fundamental that people know this and believe it in your heart. Don't worry about how you're going to get it. Just believe it. Right now, number one step is believing it.
You're right. You're absolutely right to start there, because if you don't have that true belief, then really everything else is going to just kind of stall, right? So you have to to get that part first. And yeah, that is such a powerful story. I mean, I really heard how rooted in this traditional way of thinking about the world and upbringing, and definitely it seemed like the polar opposite of your dreams of wanting to be out there and wanting to dream bigger for something. And that's so amazing that you had the coach and that you hired a coach to help you figure out what it is that you want to do, and to like, what's calling you is what's calling you.
I mean, that's the best decision I've done in my life.
Hey explorers, we'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I wanted to take just a few seconds to invite you to the free workshop that I created. It's called The 3 Secrets to Starting Your Successful Podcast. Now, it's all about helping you to start your dream podcast so that you can share your voice and expand your business. If you want to join, just go to explorerinyu.com. It's totally free. All right, friend, back to the show.
So that's my number one step. Number two, you prove yourself right. And I forgot to get that quote, but I think it was Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Yes.
And I love that quote because we are always proving ourselves right. Always, like subconsciously, we are proving ourselves right to the bitter end. If you have the imposter syndrome and you have those thoughts of like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, no matter how much I do, I'm never going to be as good as that person.
Mm-hmm.
You are constantly going to prove yourself right and find ways where that belief is right. So start proving yourself right in a different way. Like now that you know that you're constantly proving yourself right, start saying things to yourself that prove yourself right. So for me, I'll give you guys an example is like for a while, I didn't believe I was a performer. I didn't think I was funny. Now I post on my stories and I go back and watch them and tell myself how hilarious I am. I'm funny. I entertain myself sometimes. Like I'll watch my stories 3 to 5 times a day because I'm bored and be like, I need to go make myself laugh. And like I prove myself that I'm funny via my post. So like I'm being the biggest cheerleader to myself as I can. People feel your energy and they just gravitate towards you because they want that energy. They want to be in your space. Think about a person that you like online or in your real life that has this like awesome like confidence in themselves, and you just want to gravitate towards them because you just want that. They just feel good when they walk in the room. You feel good right away and you just want to go to them. You're like stuck. Like, give me your energy. So you got to remember that. And we're energetic beings and energy is so important.
I like how you're cheerleading yourself, and I think that can be a hard thing for a lot of us to give ourselves even permission to do that. Like, oh yeah, I can bolster myself up. I can be like, no, you're awesome, and that sometimes can feel really foreign. But I love that you're like your suggestion of just doing it. Yeah, and I think that you really project that, and when you show up.
My tip number 3 is very long. It's like tip 3 to 500. I call it debunking your limited beliefs. So this is something I've been learning a lot in the online coaching space, specifically around mindset and spirituality. So I took a bunch of things a lot of people do and combined them all into one. But this is what I do. So when you're having your imposter syndrome, you have all these beliefs come up, right, that are limiting you. We all have beliefs, but some just hold us back. My recommendation is start making a list of all those negative, low vibing stuff that comes up, and start figuring out, like, take one at a time. Because if you do them all at once, you're going to be crying for like weeks. So, take them as they come. Take them, don't do it all at once. So like one belief at a time. But get a belief and ask like, where did this belief come from? Like ask yourself, like, where did it came from? And then the second thing I recommend doing with that is, okay, you know where it came from. It came from a parent or a guardian. And then ask yourself, like, why did they do this? Understand like why they did it. So an example for me, when I was little, I can't remember what age I was, probably before 7. I told my parents like I wanted to be a singer and actress. And right away they shut me down and said, gente como nosotros no hace eso. People like us do that. And I didn't realize like how bitter and angry I was with my parents for like the longest time. Like subconsciously I was like bitter and angry. I wrote it down and I had to see why they said that through their lens, right? They had just come from Mexico. They didn't really know English. I think my mom was undocumented at the time too. It was the 80s and they didn't know what to do with a child that had bigger dreams than what they came here for, you know? So they didn't know really how to navigate my dreams. So they didn't want to disappoint me. They were protecting me and they nurtured me in the way that they thought I would be secure and safe and have the least struggle, which is, you know, go to school, get a college degree, get that corporate job. So I had to forgive them for that. So that's like the next step is, you know, you write down where the belief came from, why it happened, and then you forgive. You forgive and send the belief back. So like, I mean, you don't need to have like a whole seance or anything. You could just write it down and be like, all right, pops, all right, mom, I forgive you, but this belief is no longer serving me. So goodbye. Take it back. Take it back. It's yours. It's yours. I don't want it anymore. It's not serving me. And you just send it back to them. And there's a big power in doing that. I mean, as silly as it sounds and as woo as it sounds, there's so much power in that because you take back power of your life. And you take control, you take the steering wheel, as opposed to this belief that has been taking the steering wheel, which wasn't even yours to believe to begin with. It was your parents, you know, or it was a generation before you. So I think there's so much power in doing that. And then the next thing I do is I do like a bigger swoop. It's like a 3-step. So I look at the belief and ask myself, is this belief actually true? No, it's not true. Does everyone in the world believe this to be true? Well, no, not really. There's a lot of Latinos out there in film and television and making it big, you know? Okay. So it's not true. And is this belief serving me to my highest good? Well, no, it's not because I'm at a job that's sucking my soul. So no, it's not. It's not serving me at all. So what's the new belief? The new belief is someone like me could do whatever the hell they want in film and television, something like that, you know? Rewrite the new belief in a way that serves you. It's not like, it can't be as simple as just flipping it. I think I kind of gave like a bad example there, but like my belief is I, Erica Hernandez, am A, B, and C or something like that, you know, make it easy. And then what I do is I start proving that belief right. So I'll go like to Google and find people that are Latinos making it in the film, you know, top 10 Latinos in film and television. I had another one with age. I did one with age, like when people started working in Hollywood, because I was like, I'm too old, you know, and I went through that belief. And then, so I would go on the internet to prove myself right in that new belief, right? And then the last thing like that I did is take like daily action to get me closer. Like, what can I do now to get me closer to that new belief of, yes, I, Erica Hernandez, can be an entertainer. What can I do right now? Maybe it's researching how to get into film and television. Maybe it's researching other ways to entertain. It could be podcasts. It could be TikTok. It could be YouTube. Like just other ways that have that overall thing that you want. The feeling of it. It's about the feeling and the essence of that overall identity that you're striving to be. It's not like the actual thing. It's just like, what are the things I could do right now that make me feel that I'm this identity? Step 3 is massive.
Well, step 3 is such actionable steps to move you through those limiting beliefs. And I love it because I know if you do these things, they will get you closer to your goal. And I think a lot of it is to just like an opening up of like possibilities. And you can't do that if you're stuck in the limiting belief, right? You have to have the forgiveness. You have to create a different narrative for yourself. And then you have to take the steps towards achieving that vision. So I think all that is really powerful.
And you're going to have times where you're going to default to the other mode, you know, like,
right.
Oh, I can't do this. Like I had like 2 weeks where I was just like, oh, life is still the same. Nothing has changed. And I was just like feeling really heavy. And I was like, why am I even trying to create a course? Why am I even trying to be, you know, TikTok popular and podcast famous? You know, like why am I trying to do all these things? And I almost was like, I should just stop and stay with the job that I have. And then something inside me was like, hold up, wait a minute. No, you're not happy. Stop it. Look at what you've done. I had to look at like what I had accomplished so far, big or small. It didn't have to be like money, related. And I was like, oh, okay, like I now have a editing business. Or I started going to improv classes after 20 years. I finally felt like safe enough to go do it, because before I used to be super scared of doing improv. Like I wanted to do it for the longest time, but I was just so afraid to be in these creative spaces, because a lot of these creative spaces are white spaces, so it can be very intimidating. And I finally healed myself to where I went to the space and like dominated, like I had so much fun. And so I just had to remind myself like, okay, I'm doing stuff. I'm just tired right now. Like I've had some stressful work days. I'm exhausted. I'm in default mode. I gotta rewire myself to go back. And so then that's when I started doing the prove myself right. I started looking at things that like proved me right, that I'm on the right track to like the next level of life,
I'm so glad you brought up a moment where you were taking a couple steps back, and feeling at a low point, because we all will feel that on our journeys, right? We'll go to one step forward, two steps back. And that's a big reason why you take the action towards your goal, because then, like you said, you have the evidence. When you have those low moments, you can look at that list and say, oh no, but I've done this, this, and that. And I think at some point when you do take the action steps, you get to a point of no return, right? Like you've gone down the path so far, you've done it's piled up, right? So you've done so many things that it's kind of like, well, I can't quit now. I got to just keep going. And that's the other, I think, beauty of doing the small steps, every day towards your goal, because at a certain point, not only will they help you when you're in a low point, but at a certain point, you'll realize like, oh, I can't like waste all this momentum and this time.
Like when you're having those moments, it'll hit you faster. You're like, you'll go back on track way faster instead of letting it kind of draw.
Yeah, you'll bounce back.
Instead of letting it draw. And like I know I've had moments where I feel that way and I was like, wait, I haven't really slept. Like I'm tired. Your higher self goes to sleep, which is like the all-knowing event, spiritual, and your lower self, your low vibing self takes over. And so that's the low vibing self is that, the one that has all the limited beliefs and all the doubts and imposter syndrome. The mean girl wakes up and starts talking to you. So I think it's important to know that you'll have your moments no matter what, but just tell yourself, oh yeah, I'm tired because I did A, B, and C yesterday and I need to rest. And I don't think we're told that it's okay to rest. It's okay to, when you're tired, you're gonna not perform as you usually do. You're not even gonna think as good as as you do when you're like wide awake and fully energized. I think we're just taught to like, even if you're tired, keep doing it.
Just go, produce. And I think we're actually conditioned to not pay attention to ourselves. There are so many distractions and there's so many ways for us to not just sit with ourselves. And so, yeah, I definitely noticed that for myself, that implementing time to either journal or meditate, like as a normal thing has been a struggle. But once you do it, it's like, oh, it just seems natural. But I think everything around us is telling us to go and not to rest.
Definitely.
This has been a great conversation. And thank you for sharing such insightful and really like tactical, practical things that we can do to move out of imposter syndrome and bust through those limiting beliefs. Can you tell people where they can find out more about you or how they can work with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is at _Erica with the C _Hernandez. It's also that way on TikTok, but TikTok I'm more doing like reviews of film and television. But it looks like more October, November, I'm releasing a program called Hello Creativity. And it's really to help people that are performers, entertainers that haven't really fully expressed their artistic self, that like settled for corporate America and have this pull to be on stage, be on camera, but are so afraid to do it. Like they're scared, like literally afraid to take a course, to go out there and do improv, to go out there and really, really be that creative. So I help you go get over those mindset hurdles so that you could take that improv class. So you could, audition, whatever it is that you want to do, help you get out of this stuckness. I guess that's a great way to put it, and step into your creative identity. And then I also help figure out ways to start monetizing off it now and different paths that you could take with your gifts. So I'll be talking about it soon.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful program for people who just want to release their inner creative that they've been tamping down. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.